Chapter 611 Timing. I want to go back. You want to stop me? In the starry sky, Bain stepped on a fragment of the alchemy furnace and looked at the Southern Lord in front of him with a cold expression. The presence of the Southern Lord, a dignified immortal lord in the sixth realm, was actually a little uncomfortable under the pressure of her aura. What if I stop it? It's just a fight to the death, Bain said calmly. The Southern Lord was quiet for a moment, then took a step back and made a gesture of invitation. Immortal Lord, please. He would rather fight with the leader of Guiwang Mountain than fight to the death with this woman. No need. It's enough to hold Bain here for so long. Her husband disappeared, and fellow Daoist Qiliang disappeared with him. One can imagine what the results will be, judging from the reactions of Jian Xian and the others. Xian Huang was also full of surprises at their disappearance. Was it the ancestors' doing? Others don't know Li's existence. But as the Southern Lord, he still knows it to some extent. Bain turned around and left without saying a word. The gossip behind his head was shining brilliantly, not hiding his figure at all. But no one dared to stop him. Quick! Be quick! Bain looked anxious. He didn't know what his little man was going to do. But he was just sucked into the Wenyu Gate by the light. Qiliang Immortal Lord's head was rolling with deathly energy. With that level of death, even Li Qin couldn't save him. Dead. When Qiliang Immortal Lord died, everyone in heaven knew about it. She is not allowed to be detained in the hinterland of Yuanzun? Run away! Run away! Bain galloped all the way, and the Southern Lord watched him leave. There was a smile on the corner of his mouth. Su He and Qiliang Immortal Lord walked together, and it was not difficult to guess that even if they were immortal, they would not be far apart. Bain is well versed in divination, and wants to change his destiny and rescue him personally. Or to seize that glimmer of life? It would be better to let her go, so as not to mess things up for them. Bain broke through the space and flew through Xian Huang several times. She is different from Su He. Su He relied on invisibility and hundreds of passages to avoid Yuanzun's surveillance. And Yuanzun was watching Bain. Watching. The woman ran away without knowing where, until she appeared next to Tantai and pushed Yuanyu under the hammer of the Northern Lord with a casual push. Only then did everyone realize that she had returned. The Northern Lord suddenly retracted his hammer, and the shield Yuanyu had just regrouped exploded again. He was regrouped by the halberd pointed by the Northern Immortal Lord, holding the shield in his hand and looking up at Bain. There was solemnity in his eyes. Taiyan's Immortal Lord doesn't want to save your man. How dare you come to the battlefield? Bain forced himself to reach the top of the Sword Mountain, and then he breathed a sigh of relief when he reached Tantai's side. The gossip in the back of his head was spinning rapidly, and he made a face at the Northern Lord. Hold up 3 fingers. 3. Yuanzun and everyone don't know why. However, the Xian Huang Immortal Lords instantly gathered together and took a defensive posture. 2. Countdown? Yuanzun and all the immortals were startled. 1. The moment the word Bain came out, a sense of sadness came from the heaven and the earth. In the 3,000 big worlds, 100,000 small worlds, and countless stars, volcanoes erupted at the same time. The volcano, which had always been ruthless, seemed to understand sadness all of a sudden. Everyone was stunned and stared at Qiliang Immortal Lord, who died. How long had it been since he and Su He disappeared? Hearing the cry of a phoenix in the distant darkness, Fengzhu laughed. Li, is this your plan? Carefree. After many years, Xian Huang finally killed Yuanzun Immortal Lord in succession. All in all, those who killed Immortal Yuanzun in the past 80,000 years were all the Guizai family. The immortals of the Yuanzun clan exploded instantly. Unlike Yuansu, Qiliang Immortal is a 6th realm immortal, the real top power in all the worlds. Even in the former heaven, he was still a king. How could the turtle fight back and kill such a being? South! The Northern Lord shouted violently. The Southern Lord, who was far away in the hinterland of Yuanzun, looked extremely gloomy. Bain was either trying to save Su He or simply trying to escape. Mean! With a gloomy look on his face, he looked up to the sky and shouted, Bain! Shouting Bain's name, a strange aura rose up from the Southern Lord's body, twisting and forming a curse. At the battle site, Bain did not speak. Jian Xian raised his head, his eyebrows raised, murderous intent bursting out of his eyes. Get out! A shout. Then he saw an invisible mountain suddenly falling down on the Southern Lord, completely suppress his strange aura. That was Jian Xian's original name, entangled with the Southern Lord's magical power, canceling each other out and destroying each other. In the gloom of the netherworld, A dragon roared. Murderous intent as deep as the abyss. Then I heard Li's voice. Gathering spirits! Her voice carried endless murderous intent, reaching to the heavens. Then, they saw the Yuanzun clan. The Western Lord, without the obstruction of the Ming ancestor, thrust a soul-departing flag straight toward Xianhuang. It seemed as if half of the starry sky where Xianhuang belonged was destroyed. Baiyan's eyes on the sword mountain turned into Bagua, and all kinds of illusions appeared and disappeared in Bagua. There was a hint of urgency in her voice. Big man! Retreat! The Guowang mountain will stabilize the void. The demon ancient guards will destroy Li's soul, and the demon lord will suppress Li's character. The dragon turtle clan's divine power will attack without distinction. The sound was rapid, comparable to the demon queen's methods, and could only be heard by Xianhuang's sentient beings. The barbarian immortal who was fighting in the battle split open the immortal in front of him with a single blow of his mountain axe, then turned and walked away. He was the big guy in Baiyan's mouth. He doesn't like all kinds of calculations, so he always uses a mountain-breaking axe to block gods and kill Buddhas. Pure, so obedient. Shua knew that he was not smart, so he was obedient on the battlefield. Regardless of whether it was the headmaster of Guwangshan or Baiyan, he would obey whoever commanded him. Baiyan asked him to retreat, so he retreated instantly. But just as he stepped back, he felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar in an instant. He turned around and saw the Western Lord's Lihuan banner making a circle and suddenly coming towards him. The cold and icy air spurted out from the soul-living flag. It was as if Taiyuan was trying to pull his soul out. Chua's muscles exploded, and he let out a loud roar. His blood was like nails, nailing his soul to his body. He turned around and struck the Lihuan flag with an axe. The huge axe struck down on the head. The soul-living flag folded in response. But instead of being cut off at the waist, it was split in two lengthwise from the top of the head by a mountain axe. Then, the two halves shook at the same time, turning into two identical soul-living flags. Chua's face suddenly darkened. This Lihuan banner was specially made for him. In front of the axe that opened the mountain, all the cows, ghosts, and snakes formed the mountain. When the axe fell, the mountain collapsed. All these soul-living banners are turning one into many with the power of his mountain-breaking axe. The two soul-living flags are entwined and rotated, and the suction power is even greater. The soul nailed by his true blood would be unable to hold on. This soul-living banner is a sacrifice from the seventh realm of Immortal Master, and its power exceeds his. Manjua roared and struggled. And at this moment, a strange roar came, like the fusion of the roars of hundreds of beasts. A soft whip whipped down in the starry sky with a crackling sound. The soft whip carried electric light, and was whipped into the cold whirlpool formed by the soul-living flag, instantly splitting the whirlpool in half. Shua jumped out, turned around, and headed toward Xianhuang. Yuanzun, the Western Lord, grabbed a soul-leaving flag and pursued him. He saw a gentleman's sword piercing the starry sky and pointing at the soul-leaving flag. Blocked him. Monster! Lord Western's eyes narrowed slightly. He reached out and grabbed the Demon Lord, and a big willow tree appeared behind the Demon Lord. The willow branches were like whips, and he whipped them down. It was being slapped on the back of the Western Lord's hand. Lihuan banner immediately let go. Then, they saw 30 Demon Clan immortals beside the Demon Lord, forming a large formation, and waving their soft whips towards the Lihuan banner again, one whip after another. The soft whip fell on the Lihuan flag, and the flag let out a piercing scream. The treasure that suppressed the barbarians was naturally defeated by the monsters, especially Yao Gui, who was personally taught by Yao Zun and almost passed down from person to person. The Western Lord wanted to hold the Lihuan banner several times, but he was stopped by the Demon Lord with one sword and one man. After several conflicts failed, the Western Lord looked gloomy. Then, he heard a cold snort from Li in the distant darkness. Collapse! The two soul-living flags suddenly shattered. Tides of debris rolled in. In the mist, a finger pointed straight out with a hint of the underworld aura of the underworld ancestor. The fingertips were like a curtain of water swinging open, washing away all the debris. Then I saw the pieces squirming piece by piece. They merged and reorganized in the starry sky, turning into silhouettes. The dark figure floated in the sky like a torn sack. It howled as soon as it came out. There was a turtle moan and a muffled groan in the gloom. It was Li who suffered a loss. But she didn't care. Her voice remained calm, and she said to the outside, "From now on, you are called the Spirit Clan. Help Yuanzun kill Manjua." The broken sacks had no substance, and their figures were spinning and rushing towards Shua. Shua Nong frowned and struck a sack with an axe. But the sack split into two like a soul-departing flag. They have no physical body. Not even souls. They still have a hint of Yuan Yiji's breath. And their realm level cannot be distinguished. For a moment, Shu was at a loss as to what to do. But in just an instant, several torn sacks pounced on Manjua, biting into his bulging muscles, pulling out a piece of his soul. Manjua was furious. This broken sack was specially prepared for him by the woman in the netherworld breath. Tian defeated the barbarians. "Get out!" Shua shouted loudly, his momentum erupting. The spirit race that jumped on him instantly shattered into flying ashes. But then countless spirits flew in, one after another, like moths rushing to the flame. At this moment, a turtle roar came out. "Ong!" I saw an old turtle carrying a palace on its back, rushing out, and a sound of divine power rang across the starry sky. Wherever the sound waves passed, the Eldar fell like rain. Immediately afterwards, roars of dragon turtles came out, with divine power like the sea, constantly colliding in the starry sky. The Eldar clan collapsed one by one. The Dragon Turtle clan, martial ancestor and his clan members came in response to the orders of the immortal Lord Tyance. Bright moon space. A volcano collapsed. And at both ends of the extinguished volcano, two green dragons, one big and one small, stared at each other with big eyes and small eyes. Suhi was slightly uneasy, and the confusion in the ancestor's eyes seemed to show no sign of fading away. But the vitality must have worked, or the battle to kill the chilling immortal lord allowed him to vent some of his madness. And he did not attack Suhi directly at this time. But Suhi was not allowed to wear a scarf around him. He shook his head and threw Suhi out. He had been staring at it for a long time. Suhi didn't dare to move. Although this green dragon is crazy, he is strong, incredibly tough. Not as simple as the seventh immortal realm. At least they have the fighting power of Li, who is in his 30s outside. Killing the Red Ridge Immortal Lord doesn't even need to be described in detail. When Qinglong's combat power gradually increased, what was left was the dying struggle of the Red Ridge Immortal and Qinglong's head-on killing. Suhi could only make a sneak attack and harvest a person's head. It was Suhi's true water that extinguished the volcano of chilling Immortal Lord. Looking at the old dragon across from him, Suhi suddenly remembered what the Taoist master had said before, that there was once a green dragon who used the immortal realm to ascend to the sky by borrowing the moon. The Thunder King of the West also said that the ancestor of Yuan Zun was beheaded by Emperor Qilong. Are the two dragons the same? What does it have to do with the dragon in the middle of the moon in front of me? Various thoughts flashed through Suhi's mind. He didn't even dare to look at the dice that landed on chilling Immortal Lord. Well, actually two of them were thrown with 5 times the quality. I don't know how long it took. Just when Suhi thought that the Qinglong on the other side was about to fall into madness again, the Qinglong spoke. "You? Who?" The way he spoke was somewhat similar to Li's, as if he hadn't spoken for hundreds of millions of years, and his speaking ability had deteriorated. There is a bit of beastly roar in the language. Beast roars and words appear alternately. If Suhi was not born as a dragon turtle, and was born to understand animal language, he would not be able to communicate with him. Suhi's eyes lit up. He was conscious and could communicate. How much sanity has Qinglong regained? Suhi curled up his dragon body, like pouring beans, and said quickly, "Back to my ancestors. I'm Suhi. I'm a junior of the Dragon Turtle clan. By chance, I cultivated the beast chapter and got the green dragon body. The father of the green dragon body is Mengyu of the dragon clan." Qinglong was silent for a long time and said, "No, Qinglong. Not a green dragon. Just a dragon." Suhi smiled, and the dragon's beard swayed. "I have attained Xuanwen White Tiger, and the green dragon is not far away. Although the dragon body has just been condensed, the green dragon will not be too far away." A ball of light flashed in the blue dragon's eyes, as bright as a star. With a hook of his claws, Suhi let out a scream, and the roar of the dragon rose into the sky. He looked at the green dragon opposite with a murderous look, and saw that his own scales had already fallen on the green dragon's claws. "Damn it! Even the ancestor of the dragon clan can't do it." Suhi gasped and stared at the reverse scales on the green dragon's claws in front of him. But he saw the green dragon stabbing Suhi under his neck with a flick of his claws. Then he pulled out his reverse scale and inserted it into Suhi's reverse scale. "I help you," Qinglong said. Suhi was stunned and felt a strange feeling coming from his neck. It is not like mountain armor and Taoist phalanges that strengthen themselves. The power of this reverse scale is endless. But it is not strengthening him, but changing him. changes from bones to flesh to blood. Su He, who already had Xuanwu and White Tiger bodies, immediately understood this change. Qinglong. This green dragon used its bloodline power accumulated over hundreds of millions of years to change his state of existence. His change was very slow. But his reverse scales inserted into Qinglong's body had turned into real Qinglong reverse scales the moment the scales were inserted. From those reverse scales, a steady stream of various insights came into my mind. An Lin was inserted into Qinglong's body. But it was his thing, and no one could take it away. Qinglong nourishes Su He with his body. Su He looked over without knowing why. Even as a biological father, the most he can do is help pave the way for him. He has to walk the Qinglong Avenue by himself. Just like White Tiger, Zhang Xian has Princess White Tiger as his master and sister, and he has to search for it on his own. Even before he died, he failed to truly realize the White Tiger. He just found the path of the Netherworld White Tiger. Su He took advantage and directly grafted the avenue of the Netherworld White Tiger, as if he understood what Su He was thinking. Streaks of lightning from the green dragon's horn shot into the air. The phantoms of green dragons appeared in midair. There are 6 of them, coiling or circling, flying or diving. They are all blue dragons. Chapter 612, I will send you back with my body. 6 different Qinglong avenues. This is the Qinglong avenue that was stripped away after Qinglong died. Just like Pluto's death, her great path was scattered in the world, and was inherited by the Northern Immortal Lord. Choose! Qinglong spit out one word. Su He was silent. The green dragon in front of him not only carried its own avenue, but also carried 6 other green dragon avenues. Is it because there are too many avenues to carry, so I can't bear it, and my consciousness is confused? No wonder his eyes suddenly lit up when he heard that he was going to condense the Azure Dragon body. This is for Su He to inherit the existing Qinglong Avenue. Just like inheriting Zhang Xian's way of the Netherworld White Tiger. Su He suddenly became nervous. Ancestor, I still want to prove the Qinglong by myself. Just like Zhang Xian. For thousands of years, 10,000 years, he has traveled throughout the universe, from heaven to the underworld, and seen all kinds of things in the world, and all kinds of creatures. Realize your own holy beast path. With the Tao Te Ching in his body, Su He was sure that he could realize it, no matter how long it took. Qinglong lowered his head and glanced at him doubtfully. The ancient thinking cannot understand Su He's awkward temperament of being both responsible and independent. If you are an ordinary Qinglong, you must seek the right path on your own. He will surely rejoice. Anyone who dares to interfere will be killed. But the little dragon in front of me is different. He already has Xuanwu and Baihu. How can he seek the right path on his own? The great Tao must be understood. It is the same Qinglong Tao, but it carries 6 more copies, making him breathless. Even the progress of resurrection has stalled. If one person understands Xuanwu, understands White Tiger, and also understands Qinglong, the conflict between different avenues is fatal. Recalling the time when he was fighting against the mountain demon, the little dragon made several moves. Xuanwu still understands half of it. Isn't Baihu just inherited from others? Baihu's identity clearly only seeks combat power, not enlightenment. The same is naturally true for Qinglong and Suzaku. What's awkward? But since the junior wants to understand it on his own, he will naturally not stop him. He takes a breath and takes back the 6 paths of Azure Dragon Avenue. But at this moment, Su He spoke quickly. The second way. I want the way of the senior who combines offense and defense, but can improve the combat power of his clan. Qinglong. Dot. It's really awkward. With a wave of his paw, the avenue fell down, and a green dragon hit Su He with a long roar, then blended into the center of Su He's brows, disappeared into his mind, and disappeared. Enlightenment, Qinglong said. Obtaining the Qinglong Tao does not mean you will become Qinglong immediately. It is like getting the technique and practicing it yourself. Originally, to achieve enlightenment, Su He needed to create his own exercises and then cultivate his own abilities. Now you don't need to exhaust your mind to create. Just keep practicing. It's just that there is only one avenue. Su He's acquisition of this avenue means that the original Qinglong of this avenue is completely dead and has no possibility of returning. With this avenue and the aura coming from Nilin, Su He is sure to attain the Qinglong Tao within 100 years. And Lin, accumulate power. Come and get it 1,000 years later, Qinglong whispered. After leaving Qinglong Avenue, his sanity seemed to have recovered better, and he could already write short words into sentences. Having said this, he glanced at Su He and opened his mouth. Let's go! Walk! Get out of here. He is not normal. And he may not completely fall into madness at any time. With the body of this little dragon, he can withstand 3 claws at most. But no more. And he will die a very pure death. He was silent for a moment. Ancestor, I can't get out. This place is like a forbidden place. And previously cooperated with Qilong Town to kill Qiliang Immortal Lord, the dignified immortal of the 6th realm. I don't know how many escape methods he used in an instant. But he failed to break through this place, and couldn't leave even if he wanted to. The green dragon was silent for a moment. Then curled up its tail, and whipped it into the air like a whip. Snapped. With a muffled sound. The space spread out like ripples. This space has been opened. And you can even see the scene of the battle outside. Let's go! Qilong chased the guest. Suhi nodded. Ancestor, there is something going on outside. I'm coming to see you. There was a battle between the 2 sides outside. And he was anxious. Especially since Baiyin had not returned. And Tantai had rushed to the battlefield without refining the avenue. And Mingzhu. That's Li. Mingzhu is not Taizu. Although Taizu's old turtle is not in shape. He can't afford to play. But really strong. Incredibly strong. Suhi's dragon tail rolled up the volcano that Qiliang Immortal Lord turned into after his death. And rushed out along the space opened by the green dragon. A flash of surprise flashed through Qinglong's confused eyes. That mountain is his trophy. Right? That brat. Stole his trophy? Grab a dragon's loot? What do you think? Next time I dare to come, I will twist you into a twist. Suhi jumped out of the space passage and looked back. Only to see himself emerging from the Winyu Gate again. As soon as he came out, the Moon Gate flashed. And it became like it was only connected to the original space. A pure white. Even Taoist Master and Li could not be seen. But there was no Dao Master's aura around him. He had already killed a 6th realm Immortal Lord. But that guy hadn't broken through yet and escaped. Suhi turned around and saw Li leaning out half of his body in the darkness, squinting at the starry sky with divine power. He raised his hand and pointed at Xian Wang. Suhi saw behind the demon lord, Shua, who was waving his mountain axe and roaring into the sky, suddenly stopped. His body was fine. But the soul in his body was cracking little by little. The immortal lord of the 4 realms was almost helpless in front of Li. Just like when Suhi faced Yuan Yiji for the first time. He couldn't even muster the courage to resist. Roar! A dragon turtle roared. In the aura of Netherworld, Mingzhu's huge body stretched out. Bidly, collapsed the void, and pulled her back. Li Kehun didn't care. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Condensation! Since the barbarian king destroyed Yuan's consciousness, she would refine the barbarian immortal lord and use it to awaken Yuan's consciousness. It was fair. She spoke. In the starry sky, one after another, the spirit rays dragged pieces of Manjua's souls and rushed into the sky. As if diving into the water, they smashed pieces of water in the air, jumped into a strange space, and disappeared. That is the space where world consciousness resides. Suhi was stunned for a moment, and landed on Jianshan Mountain in a flash. He had transformed into a human form again, and punched Yuan Yu outside Jianshan Mountain. Yuan Yu turned around and left. It's crazy to pick him up. There's something wrong with this turtle. He can trap and kill Qiliang. And there are Tantai Ling and Baiyin who are already stronger than him. Being so close. Are you seeking death? He didn't want to become the 3rd immortal lord. Yuan Zun died in this battle. He didn't care when his punch was empty, and turned to look at Tantai and Baiyin beside him. What happened? What's going on with the Mantion spirit clan? Tantai said nothing and looked at Baiyin. She only knows how to fight, and can do so with a sword. The others are completely unknown. But Baiyin had obviously expected this. Baiyin's back was flashing with Bugwa. His eyes were dotted with stars, and he looked at the sky with a solemn expression. Old witch, turn it on! Everyone, prepare to fight to the death. Her suppressed voice spread to the Xianwang camp. For some reason, Suhi always felt that when Baiyin said this, there was a hint of excitement under his solemnity. All the immortals on Xuanwang's side were startled at the same time, and they gathered together in 2s and 3s. The sound of swords, the sound of the golden pagoda rotating, the golden wheel, the abacus, the breath of magic weapons rose up. Having had a bad premonition, he waved his hand towards the sacks flying in the sky. But the spirit clan carrying the fragment of Manjua's soul flashed across his body, blocking the attack in an instant. Then he jumped into the world consciousness space and disappeared. Then everyone felt that where the spirit tribe disappeared, a terrifying aura rose. A great terror woke up at this moment. If we say that the atmosphere of the previous confrontation between Li and Taoist Master made the Immortal Lord extremely stressed, then this breath is the whole world. Although it has not been completely condensed, when facing this aura, I already feel like an ant being crushed by the whole world. Roar! Hold head high! The roars of the three ancestors came out at the same time in the midst of the netherworld. Unknown to outsiders, they are in charge of their own heavenly calamity, and they are no strangers to this gradually gathering aura. In the consciousness space, they just robbed their own clan of natural calamity. But they had to leave a strong consciousness body to face the terrifying pressure all the time. It was still the pressure of broken and sleeping consciousness. Now this consciousness is waking up. In the space of consciousness, several tribulation clouds gathered and turned into a being that held the sky and held down the earth. The giant dragon that surrounds the world. The overwhelming phoenix. The dragon turtle that steps on the mountains and rivers as much as the sun and the moon. The endless willow trees that move with the wind. For huge figures appeared and stared straight ahead. One by one, the Ling clan members rushed into this place dragging Manjua's soul, and then broke into pieces and dissipated. Only Manjua's soul was left struggling to fall into pieces of broken tribulation clouds and visions. Every scattered calamity cloud and vision is filled with sleeping consciousness. It was only when the barbarian king dissipated itself, and the 72 generals, that they killed the entire barbarian clan. They were scattered. Manjua's soul has no one to suppress it, so it instinctively wants to gather together. The broken and sleeping consciousness was pulled by him and merged piece by piece. Only the barbarian Immortal Lord can reunite the consciousness shattered by the barbarian king. The sleeping consciousness became more and more condensed, and a terrifying aura came out of the condensed tribulation cloud vision. Even the calamity clouds of Mingzhu and the others are gradually weakening here. Like candles in the wind, they will be extinguished at any time. Return to Xian Wang and advance to the realm-protecting formation. Long Ancestor roared, baring his teeth and roaring under the tremendous pressure. The willow branches on the side swayed, as if shaking their heads. It's too late. As he spoke, the demon lord in the starry sky now had a gloomy look on his face. He swept countless wicker sticks with his fairy sword and rolled them towards Manjua's body. But this action immediately angered Li, and in the darkness, Li raised his hand and pointed at the demon lord. The demon lord looked back and hit her fingertips with his sword. With a loud noise, the demon lord flew out as if he had been hit hard, smashing into pieces of stars before stopping. Li's finger was also broken in part. Friend Taoist He! Demon lord raised his head and shouted towards Su He. Take Manjua's body away! Let's go! The Ming ancestor shouted loudly in the netherworld's aura. Several ancestors in the world consciousness space have already discovered that the situation now is completely different from that faced by the barbarian king back then. The man king was facing a pure body of consciousness, and the consciousness in front of him was condensed by Manjua's soul. The conscious body is much weaker than before it collapsed, but it can invade Manjua's physical body. A Yuan with a physical body. The horror will be unimaginable. Su He can't leave. The river of time has not been closed, but it cannot be opened. It will take at least 2 to 3 years to open. Kill me! Manjua's voice trembled and roared in the world's consciousness. When the soul is invaded by Yuan consciousness, no matter how stupid you are, you will know what you are going to face. Wake up and seize the body. It can't even be called seizing one's body, but should be called fusion. It's just that after the fusion, there's nothing left to do with him. As long as Yuan fuses with him, he will become a complete soul with the memories of the two of them. If he touches away the memory that belongs to him, he will be Manjua, and Manjua will be him. I can't stop. Shatter my body. Manjua's voice was broken. He can die, but this man must not live. Only when the soul comes into contact do you know what you are facing. The power of other people is like a world away. This consciousness is the source of the world, and it can derive one world after another. With his body invaded, no one in this world can defeat him. Not even the Taoist master. Not even Xian Wang Immortal Lord can gather together. Break it into pieces. Long Zu's voice came from the gloomy darkness. The demon lord pointed his sword, and then pointed it at Manjua's physical body. If you can't take him away, break him. Manjua is not dead, but his soul is broken and eroded by others. There is still a chance to save him. Keeping the physical body is still useful. No one wants to abandon a fellow Taoist, but if necessary, everyone will not hesitate. Manjua was the first to agree. Click on the demon lord's immortal sword. With a sword strike, he suddenly froze. Even a large world can be split open by his sword. But at this moment, the fairy sword was fixed 3 inches in front of Manjua, making it difficult to move forward. The demon lord looked at him in astonishment. He saw Manjua slowly opening his eyes, with a pair of strange eyes like an abyss. Gu Jing glanced at him calmly. The demon lord suddenly felt as if he had been hit hard. His chest collapsed downwards. His whole body was blown away, and he spat out a large mouthful of green branches and leaves while still in midair. The soul cycles back and forth between collapse and recovery. "I'm here." The barbarian looked around and spoke. The calm tone caused the entire starry sky to fall into silence for an instant. Everyone felt as if their whole bodies were suffocating, as if a mountain was pressing down on them. Their bodies were trembling, but they could not move. The whole world fell into darkness at this moment. Up, down, left, and right. I cannot sense the stars, nor my fellow Taoists. Only Manjua stood casually in the starry sky, looking calmly in all directions. Even the calmness in his eyes was no longer calm, but true indifference. Be indifferent to everything, including yourself. In the original space, half of Li Ji also transformed into a woman in her 30s, desperately blocking the passage, feeling the changes in the outside world, and grinned. She looked at the Taoist master and said in a hoarse voice, "You are too late. The conscious body has woken up and cast a beam of consciousness on Manjua. The outcome is already decided. Unchangeable." At this moment, the Taoist opposite her, who had been in a frenzy and was trying his best to explode, became silent. The previous anxiety was gone. After standing there for a long time, he showed a smile. "Has it been projected into Manjua's body? That's irreversible. In that case..." He suddenly raised his head and looked at the opposite. Li's heart thumped, and suddenly a bad feeling arose. I saw Taoist Master Tai Chi Tu pressing down and sneering. "What makes you think that you can stop me with just half your body? Are you looking down on others? Even if you look down on him, his Tai Chi diagram is still here. The temple is not here. How can you stop me?" Li suddenly changed his color and dived out of the original space. But it was already too late. The Tai Chi diagram has fallen. The yin and yang fish rotated like a millstone covering her body. There was a loud noise, and half of Li Ji's body instantly shattered. Fully half of the shattered body was crushed and swallowed by the Tai Chi diagram, and only half escaped from the original space, threw itself into the gloom of the netherworld, and merged with the main body. After the fusion was completed, Li Beng shattered the darkness and looked towards Wen Yu Gate with a cold expression. You can see the Tai Chi diagram above the head of the Taoist master emerging from the original space. The parts that were just crushed and swallowed have been integrated into the Taoist body through Tai Chi diagram. Li's face turned pale, and a quarter of her body was fused, only returning her to her 30-year-old appearance. He looked at the Taoist master with a very serious expression. "You knew I would condense my consciousness." The Taoist master smiled and said nothing. Instead, Manjua spoke, his voice still calm. "He knows it himself." Manjua looked at the Tao master quietly. "With my consciousness here, I am constantly devouring the world. The Tao master protects the world and will not tolerate it." Manjua glanced at Li. It also fell off the main body. "And these fingers are really stupid." "He can't tolerate me, but there is nothing he can do about it. My consciousness is entangled with the world. If you take the opportunity to crush me, the world's consciousness will naturally fly into ashes. Use your hand to awaken my consciousness and separate it from the consciousness of the world. How can I mince it without stripping it?" He seemed to be talking about an extremely ordinary thing. As he said that, he looked at the Taoist master. "Xian, long time no see. Those fingers are so stupid that they can't tell the difference between fellow Tao masters in the past. How could he not know that?" The Taoist master bowed slightly. "Last time, I followed my master to meet you outside the realm, but you were beaten by my master in a bit of a state of embarrassment." Manjua seemed unable to hear his teasing, and his voice remained calm. "You swallowed half of Li's body to use her power to pinpoint my location and ensure that your attack later will not fail? Are you ready to die in this life?" The words are questions, but they are also statements. The Taoist master nodded slightly. "After all, it is your consciousness, and it is with the master. Even if you are a junior, if you don't give up this life, how can you completely erase this consciousness of yours? There is no war without sacrifice. But this time I am talking about him." The Taoist master took a step forward as he spoke, and his aura suddenly rose. "I have lived enough in this life. I will let this junior wear my body and send you back." Chapter 613. Another person from the sixth realm. Please go back. Go back. The Taoist master's voice stretches endlessly like torrential waves, swinging across the starry sky. Suhi suddenly raised his head and looked at the Taoist master in disbelief. This GY is going to die. He stepped forward, but was glared back by the Taoist master. The Taoist master looked helpless. All the immortal lords in the starry sky were suppressed by Yuan's aura for a moment, and even the demon lord's movements were hindered. Only my junior brother broke out of his stagnant state after being quiet for a moment. This guy doesn't know how to grow. Is it because the teacher's finger bones are on his body, and he is already familiar with this breath? Or does it have its own original Taoist charm, and is not affected? Looking around, the first person to break free from Yanwei's suppression was not the four-spirit ancestor and the demon lord, but Tantai on the Sword Mountain. These are also younger siblings, and they should be taking advantage of Jianshan's various Taoyuns at this moment. Then Bai Ling, the four-spirit ancestors, and the demon lord were seen breaking free one after another. And then the Sifang immortal lord. The northern immortal lord glanced at Jianshan, his expression stagnant for a moment, and he couldn't tell whether it was pity or jealousy. When his eyes fell on the Taoist master again, he felt even more uncomfortable. It's unknown who Manjua is, but he must be an extremely ancient being. Not surprisingly, he is a contemporary of Dao ancestor. Judging from what he just said, Xian. He called the Taoist master Xian. That is the name of the first Taoist master, the third disciple of Daozu, the existence that truly preaches to all heavens and worlds. For the monks in the heavens, this is the real ancestor. He once went to Guiwang Mountain in person to discuss Taoism with the Taoist master, asking the Taoist master to open Zhenyo Mountain to him. He wanted to accept all the Taoist ways of Pluto. Thinking back at this moment, a feeling of suffocation arose in the heart of the northern immortal. In front of my junior brother, I want to cut off my senior sister's path. He also discussed Taoism with the Taoist master, but what he thought at that time was really right. He received the inheritance of Pluto, and turned around to be a little Pluto. Even if he could not reach the height of Pluto, he could at least surpass the immortal lord. The real Pluto is completely dead and will never be resurrected. As long as he can pass on the inheritance, he will be the true successor of Zhenyo Mountain, and the two mountains will support each other. How nice! Then he was thrown out by the Taoist master. This layer of membrane has been lifted, and the embarrassment at the moment is nothing. After thousands of years of practice, the northern immortal lord has encountered more than this embarrassing situation. But the first Taoist master is still there. Where is Pluto? The northern immortal was startled, and for some reason, he looked towards Jianshan. The Bain and Tantai on Jianshan Mountain are like lotus flowers, which are beautiful in the world. Beifong suddenly shook his head to eliminate this thought from his mind. Although the two of them could integrate the inheritance of Pluto, there was an existence above them with the same name as Pluto. Isn't it more similar to these two? My mind was in a mess. Hearing Manjua chuckle, he looked up. Manjua looked at the Taoist master and shook his head slightly. Not enough! He is just a piece of consciousness. But now that he has a physical body, he can use various methods. If the 7 bodies are integrated into a complete Xian, there will be no problem in turning a piece of his consciousness into nothingness. If Na Xian could still mobilize all the immortals from Guiwang Mountain, he might be able to block his body for a moment like the Emperor of Heaven. But the mystery in front of me is just a small piece of the real mystery. Far from enough. He looked around the 4 spirit ancestors, only looking at the other 3 people, but passed over the Qilin ancestor. If you don't reach the 7th immortal realm, you don't even have the qualifications to approach him. So, are you all ready to die? Manjua shook his head again. It's not enough. Half of the Xianwang immortal lords died today, so we might be able to do it. After saying this, Manjua stopped talking nonsense and raised his hand to point at the Taoist master. With an ordinary finger, not even the starry sky fluctuated. The 7th realm immortal lord Xianwang suddenly seemed to be facing a powerful enemy, with mountain armors, dragon gates, and phoenix crowns rising up from the sky. The willow tree behind the demon lord condensed into a solid entity, and with a flick of the willow branch, other immortal lords were swept away from the battlefield. Block Yuan Zun, Demon Lord said in a deep voice. Half of the willow branches poked out, connecting the treasures held up by the 3 ancestors together to form a large formation. Facing Yuan's finger, the 2 sides collided, still silently. But in just an instant, the 4 people changed their colors at the same time, and a mouthful of blood spurted out. The blood turned into various strange phenomena in the starry sky, and was instantly annihilated. Almost at the moment they collided, The Taoist Tai Chi figure had already fallen down, spinning to block Yuan Yi's finger. Invisible fingers made a convex fingerprint on the entire Tai Chi diagram. The Taoist master shook his hand into a fist and punched it out, knocking back the raised fingerprints. He used the Tai Chi diagram as a shield to stand in front of Manjua. Looking back at the four embarrassed Supremes, he laughed. You want to feel it? How do you feel now? Under such pressure, is there a chance to break through? Mingzu shook his head first. 300 years. Even with the previous battle with Li and the pressure of this finger, it would take at least 300 years to break through the immortal realm and reach the Tao Master's current realm. As he spoke, Mingzu raised his proud head. I wonder if he is the first person in the Dragon Turtle clan to break through the limits of the Immortal Lord. Probably. Once he dies in battle in the future, leaving behind a dark armor will make the Dragon Turtle clan dominate the world. Right? The old turtle laughed. And the black dragon next to him curled his lips and said depressedly, 1,000 years. He arrived late and had few fights with Li. It would take him 1,000 years to have a chance. But if you can feel the horror of death a few more times in the next few times, the time should be shortened a lot. Fengzu next to him shook his head slightly. I don't want to. She died and was resurrected. The realm is limited here, and it is almost impossible to break through. The three of them turned to look at the Demon Lord on the side. The Demon Lord shook his head and said nothing. The exchange was completed in an instant. Yuan Yiji did not make any achievements, nor did he retract the finger he pointed out. He directly bent his hand into a claw and grasped it inward. At the battle site, the entire starry sky suddenly shattered. Just like the water, wind and fire refining the earth in chaos. It melted in an instant and turned into another world, wrapping the five people. The five people raised their heads at the same time and looked forward. Manjua stepped into this emerging world. The appearance has completely changed. Neither male nor female. It is difficult to distinguish between beauty and ugliness. I can't even tell what it looks like. It's neither a human nor an animal. But if you think about it carefully, what is on your mind is what he is. The Taoist master held the Tai Chi diagram and looked at the existence in front of him. The other three people looked at Mingzu at the same time. The feeling this existence gave them was just like the little turtle in the Dragon Turtle family. That turtle dot, even they couldn't tell the color. This person has the same purpose, but different approaches. Then I heard the Taoist master in front of me smile bitterly. Everyone. This one has gained a physical body. And the power he can exert is beyond my imagination. You all should try your best. Several people nodded at the same time with solemn expressions. Back then, one hand forced the ancestors of the four spirits and the white tiger into destruction. Today, they are conscious bodies. But they have physical bodies, so they may not be without such means. There is a real world within one's grasp, and this world is specially created for them. It's completely aimed at them. Is this how Source fights? The four people roared, connected with each other through the power of willow branches, and turned behind the Taoist master. The Taoist master waved his Tai Chi diagram and turned into a Tai Chi ball to wrap them up and crash outwards. Outside, the Demon Queen let out a long chant. Form up! The immortal masters of the Yuanzun clan already surpassed Xian Huang, and there were also Li and Yuan. At this moment, the five strongest people resisted Yuan at the same time. The external pressure can be imagined. Bai Yin! The Demon Queen's voice was extremely high-pitched. Bai Yin's figure is no longer visible on the Sword Mountain. Only the Bagua diagram is spinning like the wind. I'm here! Bai Yin's voice came out from the Bagua too, and the girl who escaped from the scene rarely calmed down. Xian! Advance, Bai Yin said. Then one person and one sword blocked the swordsmanship of the three immortals. With a swing of the immortal sword, they forced the three people back at the same time, and their auras suddenly increased. Iron chains appeared behind him, and each one broke apart. Every time one is broken, the momentum increases a lot. After connecting 7 roots, the power on his body has completely transformed into the 7th level of Immortal Lord. Breaking into the 7th realm, he raised his head and waited for Bai Yin's next command. He is the headmaster of Guangshan, but he is not good at commanding. Suhi, take away the Immortal Lord of the 5th realm and fight elsewhere. Qian, Shilin, stop Li. The south is thousands of miles away. The north and the east are 3,000 miles away. Wild Monk Xian Wang Shanggui martial formation. Bai Yin's voice came out one after another, as if the movements of the Yuanzun clan's immortals had already been predicted. The only 2 people who were not affected by the hexagram were Su He and Li, and they were both excluded by her. In an instant, The entire starry sky was in chaos. Suhi shook Tantai's hand, and a mountain god seal was thrown out, bumping into Yuan Yu and heading away. Yuan Yu roared, and connected the swords in his hands, each sword shattering a mountain god seal. The western lord of the Yuanzun clan looked neither sad nor happy, and roared, "Stop! Although I don't know the details, I can obviously speculate a lot. Su He and Li Zhu of his family are probably not included in Tian's Immortal Lord's predictions. That's why they have to be excluded, and can make it happen. The role of Tian's Xianzuan in the melee is simply immeasurable. At this moment, the Yuanzuan clan is gaining momentum. The top immortals in Xianwang and Huang were not around, and it was time to take advantage of the opportunity to harvest. How could she be allowed to fight for that glimmer of hope? The Northern Lord smashed his giant hammer and opened the passage in front of him. He stepped out and chased after Su He. But Su He turned around and grabbed Wen Yumin, calling Wen Yumin over and yelling loudly, "Anyone who dares to stop me today will die!" He was full of murderous intent and glanced at the Northern Lord, who burst out of the sky. The shield in Yuenyo's hand earlier belonged to this grandson, Immortal Master 6th Realm. "Come on! If you dare to come, I will take you to the moon." The dignified northern leader of the Yuanzun clan was so frightened by Su He's scolding that he did not dare to move. The death of Chiliang Immortal Lord was too strange. A 6th Realm Immortal Lord, who suppressed the ancient existence, died in an unknown manner. With such a record, no one dares to approach Su He easily. He turned around and was about to leave when he heard Su He shout loudly, "Stop for me! Come when you want to come and leave when you want. Is it okay for you to be with me?" Su He shouted. "Stand there in the starry sky and watch me kill Yuan Yu. Otherwise you will bear the consequences." Damn it! Xian Wang was suddenly trapped by 5 supreme beings, and the situation was extremely unfavorable. The one who bluffs is one. The one who bluffs is one for a while. Bayan Bagua lit up in the distance, like a pair of star eyes twinkling, and his little man gave her a surprise. The Northern Lord's expression completely darkened. The giant hammer at his hand trembled, and he stared at Su He with a sinister look, as if he was about to kill suddenly in the next moment. Su He seemed unable to see him, and instead ignored him completely, turning his head and slashing at Yuan Yu. Su Hehuan didn't care and looked determined. But the Northern Lord did not dare to take action easily. If you hold a hammer in your hand, it doesn't matter whether you hit it or not. He just gritted his teeth and looked ahead. The big hole in Yuenyo's chest has recovered, but his complexion has obviously dropped. He raised his sword to fight. The sword split at the first touch. Yuenyo's expression suddenly changed. This turtle is so strong. Compared to before entering Wen Yu Gate, he suddenly became stronger. Previously, Su He could barely exert the combat power of the 5-realm Immortal Lord with the help of Shanjia and Daozu's finger bones. At this moment, he really has the fighting power of the 5-realm Immortal Lord. Qinglong Patriarch's reverse scale is very useful. Su He slashed at Yuan Yu, his eyes brightening as he slashed. Probably the reason why the Qinglong ancestor was born in reverse was that it was the time when his improvement was greatest. At this moment, every sword strike was more powerful than before. It was not because Nai Lin had improved his skills, but the faster the body's true energy circulates, the stronger Nai Lin's transformation is on him. And the more condensed the Qinglong body is, the stronger the Dao ancestor's finger bone power can be used. Sure enough, fighting is the best way to practice. While Su He was fighting, a stream of consciousness kept hitting Nai Lin. "Ancestor! Ancestor! Come out and play! It's very lively outside. You can go crazy as you like without fear of killing people." There are more than a dozen immortals from the Yuanzun clan, enough for Qinglong to vent out all the madness of hundreds of millions of years. As a younger generation, you must know how to be filial to your elders. At this moment, the Yuanzun clan went crazy. Li suppressed Jian Xian and Qilin ancestor, and almost disabled them in a moment. There are also 7 realms of Western lords, and Xian Wang resists the difficulties. If it weren't for Bai Yin's command, I'm afraid the defense line would have been broken. That's not the worst. The space of world consciousness is faintly revealed in the air. It can be seen that Yuan's consciousness is still flowing into Manjua's body. Nothing can be seen in the world condensed by Yuan Kai, and he doesn't know how the battle is going. But the power of that world is constantly increasing. Yuan, still advancing. He hasn't reached his peak yet. Through the consciousness space, you can vaguely see Yuanzun's territory. For immortals are setting up formations to accelerate the integration of Yuan's consciousness. If all Yuan consciousness enters Manjua's body, then the 4 immortals can also be released. Right? It's terrible. Just thinking about it gives me a headache. Su He could only harass the Qinglong ancestor, who was almost dead. As long as that one person comes out, he can stop Li alone and liberate Jianxian and Qilin ancestor, which can at least give people a breath of relief. Su He called over and over again, but could not hear Qinglong's response. I wonder if the old dragon fell into madness again. Old ancestor, you don't want to come out? How about I send you in? Can! After a long while, Su He stepped forward, and the voice of the Qinglong ancestor came out. Su He's eyes lit up. His eyes drifted to the side of the Northern Lord inadvertently. Although the Northern Lord was unaware of the exchange between Su He and the Qinglong ancestor, the look in his eyes instantly made him sit on pins and needles. And he swung the copper hammer at Su He. Came here by yourself? Su He was overjoyed and retreated violently, summoning Wen Yumin at the same time. He stretched out his hand to grab it, and asked Yumin if he didn't come over. Turning around, he saw a figure appearing on the Wenyu gate. He stepped on the door, and suppressed Wenyua's disciples. Lord of the South. Is this your backup plan? Sorry, I banned it. In this life, he has been facing off against Guangshan. Back then, his opponent was Jianxian. Jianxuan's real name was abolished. And today the Wenyu sect has been sealed. He pressed down with his left hand, and the seals fell towards Wenyu gate. He raised his right hand, and in an instant the light burst out. He actually lifted up the bright moon. Since the Wenyu gate has the bright moon as its root, wouldn't it be fine without the bright moon? Wake it up! The Southern Lord shouted loudly. Yin and Yang reversal. The brilliant light falls on the bright moon, and the bright moon seems to be driven away, moving towards the west at a faster speed. There is a big sun rising impatiently in the eastern sky. Suddenly it was bright and black and white were reversed. Su He felt that the connection with the Qinglong ancestor was getting farther and farther. His face was extremely dark. The mountain armor came out of its body, and crashed into the Northern Lord's bronze hammer, sending his whole body flying away with the hammer. He tried his best to steady his body, and raised his head. The bright moon in the western sky was already half dark. From now on, there will be no moon in the sky. It will be daylight forever. The Southern Lord stepped on the Wenyu gate, and his voice spread to all directions, leaving no room for doubt. As he spoke, Su He felt as if the world was really obeying his orders. The bright moon will disappear, but the bright sun will remain forever. I almost forgot that there is an immortal lord in the Yuanzun clan. Big day. Su He raised his head, and looked at the bright sun above his head. A murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Roll! Is it time for you to come out? Just come out. He raised his hand, and slapped the big sun. The phalanges on the back of the hand flashed with brilliance, and everyone saw only a big hand, slapping it against the bright sun. The sun had just risen, and then crashed into the distance like a ball. Everyone took a breath of air, and looked at Su He in disbelief. What method is this? Su He was photographing the big sun today. Although he was far from being able to kill it with one slap, he was definitely not able to shock it by just slapping it. With this palm strike, the world changes instantly. Hao Yue, who had just been forcibly expelled, stubbornly flew back again. The Southern Lord's expression changed slightly, and he raised his hand to pat Hao Yue, as if wanting to imitate Su He. He also took pictures of Hao Yue. But at this moment, the half-dragon body wrapped around the Wenyu gate at his feet suddenly came to life, grabbed his ankle, pulled him downwards, entangled him, and crashed into the Wenyu gate. Chapter 6:14 Taizu, who is not a Duan consciousness anymore. The light in Wenyu gate flashed, and the vision was completely gone. An empty portal is not even connected to the original space, let alone the bright moon space. That aura was taken by Ancestor Qilong. He could indeed throw his power outside Wenyu gate, but there was a limit. He controlled the dragon corpse, and never came out in person. Su He looked back, and grabbed the Wenyu gate in his hand, then turned to trap the Northern Lord again. The Northern Lord's expression changed. He smashed the space with a hammer, and turned around to run away. Wenyu sect has changed, but who knows if it is more weird or if the ability has been blocked. The Northern Lord left, and Su He threw the Wenyu gate out. The Wenyu gate broke through the space and disappeared. Returned to Gowang Mountain again. Without Qinglong's body, Qinglong Wenyu cannot be created. If Wenyu sect stays here, it may be exploited by others. There is Yuan's consciousness next to him. Until this moment, the rotation of the sun and the moon in the sky ended again. The moon is still bright in the sky. In the new world in the starry sky, Yuan, whose appearance and form could not be distinguished, suddenly raised his head and looked at Su He at the moment when Su He was taking pictures of the bright sun. This technique, Tai. This is Tai's unique method, and it can only be mastered by Tai's own descendants. He raised his hand and grabbed into the world consciousness space, pulled it back, and all the boundless consciousness fell down. The power surged instantly. The expressions of the 5 Taoist masters suddenly changed. I saw the Taoist master slapped his chest with his palm, and a large mouthful of real blood sprayed on the Tai Chi diagram. In an instant, the Tai Chi diagrams filled up, as if the 7 Tai Chi diagrams were fused together in concentric circles. It's just that the 7th path is still a phantom and has not yet solidified. The 7 Tai Chi diagrams stretched outwards, bursting apart the world. Tai Chi hung high. The Taoist master stood in the air, and the 4 Ming ancestors behind him fell out miserably. Everyone, please return to Xianwang and ascend to the world-protecting formation. One day when I return, we will join hands to fight against this Yuan Zun. A struggle flashed in the 4 people's eyes, but they turned around and walked away, hitting immortal Yuan Zun with a series of vented attacks. In an instant, Yuan Zun was forced back. Ming ancestors toward us sh. I was cracked and dilapidated, with blood rolling out of his body like water. He forced the Western Lord back, raised his head, and let out a long chant. Go back! Today, if the Taoist master sacrifices his life to annihilate Yuan's consciousness, they can forcibly seize the world's consciousness. Xianwang Immortal can usher in a real outbreak against the enemy Yuan Zun. This was the first time he saw the dawn of victory. Walk! Retreat! Bain's voice resounded through the starry sky, and the Bagua rotated faster and faster, guiding Xianwang Immortal Lord to retreat step by step. In the starry sky, the Taoist leader advanced instead of retreating. The 7 levels of the Tai Chi figure above his head merged, and he walked step by step towards Yuan, who had once again changed into a man-like appearance. With every step he took, Tai Chi too added a layer of power to his body, forming a wheel of light. After 7 steps, the wheel of light condensed like a millstone. The huge millstone fills the entire starry sky. It slowly rotates and makes a roaring sound. The immortal lord of the Yuan Zun clan suddenly felt as if he had seen Yuan and could not step forward. Evenly can't get close, using himself as firewood to light the millstone. The Taoist master at this moment is invincible. The Taoist master was standing in the center of the millstone, flicking the dust with a smile on his face. I entered death 5 times, but this 6th time has a vigorous feeling. It can wipe out the consciousness of the seniors who condense their souls. It is worth the millions of years of practice of the juniors. As the Taoist master spoke, the half of Li's body swallowed up and his body shone with brilliance, completely positioning Yuan. This blow consumed all his soul and body. It only had the power of 1 blow, leaving no chance for Yuan Yu to break free. He looked back at Xianwang. This life is enough. Everything that could be done was done. Cutting off half of Li's body, obliterating Yuan's consciousness, he laid down a large formation that caged the sky for Xianwang, ensuring Xianwang's safety, and gave Ming and the others the foundation to break through to the immortal lord. It's time to enter annihilation. The next life will be smoother. Su-He! Let's go! Bain's voice rang in Su-He's ears. How can there be no death in war? But this time it's Taoist master's turn. What are you afraid of? It's been my turn several times, so I'm used to dying. As Su-He retreated toward Xianwang, he sent a message from the Taoist master to remind him. Brother, the teacher's finger bones are here with me. It's not Li's evolved fingers. It's the finger bones of a real teacher. It has also been improved in quality by dice. The Taoist master looked at him and shook his head slightly, and laughed. It's useless. If the junior brother really has the power of the immortal lord or even surpasses the immortal lord, he may be able to use the teacher's finger bones to destroy him. But it is not enough at this moment. Junior brother, there is no need to worry. You can go back now and return to your era. Aren't I still here? Since it is still proving that nothing is wrong, what is there to hesitate about when something is destined to succeed? Lien Yuan's expression became solemn for the first time. The momentum was raised, and in an instant the whole world was filled with the power of Yuan, and the stars in all directions trembled and collapsed. The bright moon sank little by little, and the sun rose happily. Even Yuan Zun's immortal lord retreated silently. The Taoist master smiled, as if he couldn't feel the pressure of Yuan, and his body collapsed little by little, filling the entire millstone and completely condensing the millstone into shape. Su-He gasped and turned toward Xianwang. At this moment, a breathtaking sigh sounded in Su-He's consciousness. He's a guy who hasn't made any progress. He should be hung up and whipped. Suhi was suddenly stunned. And then, he was endlessly surprised. Ancestor? Ancestor! Taizu's voice rang in his consciousness. Yes. Yes. I told you. I'm not deaf. So there's no need to be so loud. It's really you. It's really you. Suhi's entire mind was instantly filled with boundless joy. Taizu smiled and said, Goizi, can you lend me your body to me? Question mark. Suhi was happy but also confused. Suddenly hearing Taizu's voice again. The surprise was beyond words. Even the sense of security that a mere voice brought to Suhi was unparalleled by others. But hearing what Taizu meant, he wanted to take action. What Taizu came to was just a body of consciousness. Still smuggling. Suhi was stunned. Then, he heard Taizu's laughter coming from his own mouth. What? Look down on the ancestor? Who is not a conscious body anymore? He rolled his eyes and glanced upward. Following Taizu's voice in Suhi's mouth, I saw the millstone transformed by Tai Chi in front of me. And it was suddenly fixed by life. The Tao Master's expression suddenly changed. But he found that he could not rotate the Tai Chi diagram no matter what. A huge force was generated behind him. And his Tai Chi diagram was stilled. Turning around, he saw that his junior brother, who had left, had returned again. A strange temperament rose up in Suhi. Zheng was moving his hands and feet in disgust. He was extremely dissatisfied and muttered in his mouth. What a good dragon turtle! Why do you look like a human and a dog? You don't behave like a human. And you also have wings! Birdman! Then Suhi shook his body and revealed his turtle body. The dragon turtle that looked like black jade was lying in the starry sky, feeling the shape of his dragon turtle. And then his eyes showed a look of satisfaction. This is right! He looked up and saw the astonished Taoist master. He waved his claws, and the Taoist master flew out uncontrollably and hit the entrance of the world's consciousness space with the Tai Chi diagram. The Taoist master was stunned and didn't know why. He heard a rumbling sound coming from Suhi's mouth. Stay there and guard your consciousness. Don't allow him to escape back, Suhi said, and glanced at him even more dissatisfied. What's wrong with learning at a young age? Learn to commit suicide with that girl. This is the most useless method. The Taoist master was stunned. His pupils suddenly condensed. And he looked at Suhi in disbelief. His heart filled with turmoil. Although he was in the starry sky, he started to gasp. This voice and this gaze, although without any pressure, compared Yuan's aura to a powerful aura. Master, never admit your mistake. That's the teacher. Taoist master opened his mouth. But before he could speak, big tears fell from his eyes. It's the real master? He was panting and bursting into tears. He opened his mouth but couldn't make a sound. Just tears. He struggled to spit out half of the word, teacher, and couldn't speak anymore. Taizu glanced at him with disgust. He used to cry a lot when he was beaten by those two little guys. That was okay. He still looked like a teenager. Now, he looks like an old man and is still crying. This is very disturbing. Bah! Taizu looked at him with contempt. After a good fight like this, don't say you are my disciple. We can't afford to lose this person. The Taoist master was scolded. But he nodded happily. As happy as a child tens of millions of years old. Even the Tai Chi diagram behind him kept trembling. Taizu looked at him, unable to reprimand him for a moment. He sighed, moved his turtle SHL, and said, Look, I will tell you too how the fight is fought. Taizu spoke and walked forward. Suhi, did this take away his body? Old turtle. He also said that you are not the reincarnation of Tao ancestor. Taizu walked step by step, losing a little of his momentum with every step. When he reached the same height as Yuan, even Suhi's original momentum was gone. Just an ordinary turtle. He smiled as he walked. Goizi, my ancestor never lied to anyone. You lied to the turtle. Taizu laughed, but did not explain. On the other hand, the Taoist master above his head just laughed or cried, and said with a happy smile, Junior brother, do you think there is a possibility that the teacher did not lie to you? And that he really has not been reincarnated? Suhi raised his head in confusion. He didn't know what state he was in at the moment. His body was forcibly borrowed by Taizu, and his consciousness moved freely without forming a conscious body. It doesn't even exist. When you look up, you can see the excited Taoist with his pupils flickering. Suhi didn't know why. The Taoist master chuckled. Junior brother, tell me, is it possible that the teacher has not been reincarnated? After all, there is no mother's body in this world that can give birth to him. He has been reincarnated. Is there a possibility? The teacher has dispersed his Taoism and cut off his memory. Return to childhood. And then break out of the SHL. Grow. And practice? The Taoist master's voice was very soft, as if he was afraid of disturbing something. His eyes inadvertently glanced at the trio of people wearing cassocks and quietly sneaking back from the Yuanzun clan. But it was impossible for outsiders to hear his words. This was a chat channel specially opened by Taizu to teach his disciples. No one except the three of them could hear him. He was stunned. Wasn't he reincarnated? But was he level cleared and coming back? So Daozu was originally a dragon turtle? He also glanced at the little Taizu, who was shrouded in cassock below and was quietly driving back to the temple like an old ox. The cassock can block other people's eyes, but it can't block the Taoist master in him. Or in other words, he doesn't want to be the two of them. He was stunned for another moment. Doesn't that mean that the current Xiao Gutai didn't rely on the shadow of his previous life to cultivate to this point? Did he cultivate step by step on his own? Be it Su Huanyan or Bai Ling. They are all reincarnations. The conduct of the previous life is just in the background. But it does not cease to exist. If there is a real crisis situation, you can return to your peak condition at any time if you pull it out. Xiao Gutai. No. He was able to run to the Immortal Lord's territory to win the game at the 4th level of Kaitian. Is it because of his own ability? Can he be as good as He in terms of real combat power just by practicing on his own? He was stunned and couldn't accept it. He always thought that Taizu relied on the shadow of his previous life. Compared with Taizu, isn't he too useless? With the help of 3 immortal wives and the help of all the great masters, the result is that they can only be on par with Taizu? This is Taizu who still hasn't obtained his previous memories. When Taizu gets his memory back and practices thousands of miles, won't he be completely thrown away? Chest hurts. Taizu laughed, but did not respond. Neither denied nor confirmed. He slowly walked up to Man Yuanzhua and met each other's eyes. At this moment, Yuan's eyes were full of energy, as if he had seen the most wonderful sight in the world. And he looked at He quietly. It took him a long while before he made a hysterical sound. Tai. The Taizu man stood up and covered his ears. I'm here. I'm here. I'm really not deaf. I can hear you. Gutai, who was returning furtively below, looked up in horror and almost lost the temple, dragging his accomplices to escape. Only then did he realize that the terrifying presence above his head was not calling him. There is actually someone named Tai in this world. Fortunately, the name is not the same. His name is Gutai. On the other side, the black and yellow border, the mountain of swords was suspended, and the Tantai fairy sword was unsheathed and looking at the starry sky quietly. The gossip was spinning behind Bai Yin's head, but he could only figure out chaos. It doesn't even count as an insinuation, but it can explain a lot of problems. He had just returned to the starry sky and shocked the two of them. However, when He waved his claws to freeze the Taoist master suicide and threw him aside like a doll, the two knew that this was not He. Then think of He's 6 realms of killing the Immortal Lord. The little man carries a big killer weapon. The two looked at each other and saw clearly in each other's eyes. That Taizu of later generations. Sure enough, the origin is unusual. Taizu covered his ears to respond. It wasn't until the opponent Yuan rushed up with a roar that he opened his ears and slapped him down with Renli's posture. It's just like shooting the big day back then. Snapped. A crisp sound spread throughout the starry sky. Yuan, who was wearing a wild coat, seemed to have bumped into Taizu's paw, and was slapped by him and flew back. Taizu chuckled and dropped another claw, tearing apart the world and not just space. When the space is opened, the opposite side should be the destination. Even if the space is turbulent, it is still a place He knows. But today I tore it open, and there was nothing on the other side. Before he could see clearly, he saw his paw raised again, and slapped Man Zhua Haoyuan upside down, and was slapped into the gray space by him. My doll has worked hard to maintain the world for hundreds of millions of years, but we can't let you destroy it like this. You and I will fight outside the world. As Taizu spoke, he had already chased Yuan into the gray space. He followed uncontrollably. As soon as he entered that space, he felt lonely. This place is like chaos, with no time and space. But there is no dark and yellow mist of chaos. Here is simplicity. Nothing. Yuan Xing was at a place where he couldn't tell whether it was far or near, and looked at Taizu. Taizu chuckled and explained to He. This is the real chaos outside the heavens and the world. Originally, this place was all chaos. It is not a defective product outside the 3,000 worlds. Later, I accidentally knocked him back. There is such a void between chaos and the heavens and the world, Taizu lamented. But don't worry. Your senior sister has helped me deal with the aftermath. Look, isn't there chaos entangled outside the 3,000 worlds? Su-hee, old man. He felt that the chaos of the 3,000 worlds seemed fake. Sure enough, the real chaos was wrapped outside the entire world. Not inside the world. Outside the big worlds. The so-called big world. As the name sounds, isn't it just the islands and the starry sky in the world? It turns out it was your fault. Taizu was a little uncomfortable being questioned by him, and burst into laughter. Relax. Little Kai. Today I will teach you what real fighting is. Stop complaining dully. I have only taught them 3. Su-hee is awe-inspiring. Real art? He has never learned how to fight since he broke out of his SHL. He only fights randomly with a bunch of punches. Today I can finally open my eyes and learn something real. Personally passed down by Tao ancestor. This is the real biography. Possessed. Taught personally. Su-hee held his breath and concentrated. And then he saw Taizu moving as he spoke, clawing with his 4 claws. And suddenly moving forward. He opened his bloody mouth towards Yuan and took a bite. Yuan lowered his feet, retreated suddenly, and avoided Taizu's bite. He made a volley with his finger, and all kinds of magic flags came towards Taizu. Taizu turned his head and took another bite. If this bite were in all the heavens and worlds, it would be able to break even a big world. Here, countless demon flags collapsed in the turtle's mouth. Su-hee was very excited. Then, what about supernatural powers? What about magic? What about the formation? This old turtle said so solemnly. Shouldn't he create magical powers casually? Dismantle the opponent's magical powers, and then hang large formations all around? This is like a beast. What does it mean to take one bite after another? Su-hee was confused, and Taizu's voice came to his mind. Turtle boy, remember, don't be so fancy. Just use whatever kills people best and is easiest to use. Su-hee froze thoughtfully. After a while, he asked quietly, Ancestor, are you unwilling to fight in all the worlds because you are afraid that others will see your fighting style? Can the dignified Taoist ancestor not afford to lose this person?